somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Good morning. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Community Forum. This coming Monday is two things. It's Labor Day and it's also Rosh Hashanah. So we want to say Happy New Year to all of our Jewish brothers and sisters. Monday marks the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. It is a great celebration for all of them and for all of us as we move into the next phase of this year. We dedicate this broadcast to a staff member, Michelle Chambers, one of the most dedicated staff members of Push for Excellence and Rainbow Push, who made her transition this week. We want you to hear reflections from the staff. Many people remember Michelle as working with the Oratorical Society. I remember her in many aspects, but she was faithful to the Historic Black College Tour. The way I remember Michelle, she persevered in spite of her health challenges. She was persistent in her faith in God. She was passionate in her love for children and personal in her commitment to the struggle for justice and human rights. And she presented herself as a woman of class with great dignity and character. And so now I want you to hear from some of those who worked closely with Michelle, either as a volunteer or a staff member.
I want to extend my heartfelt prayers and love and appreciation for the family of Michelle Chambers. Michelle was an incredible staff member, an incredible woman, a woman of great courage and a woman of great faith. We know we'll see her again. Thank you, Michelle, for your service, for your dedication, for your commitment and loyalty to the Rainbow Push Coalition. You're gone, but you're never forgotten.
We will miss Michelle Chambers, who was the pillar of the Push Excel program. She was the shoulder students and parents leaned and depended on. Her giving spirit will forever live on with the Rainbow Push Coalition and the students and parents she touched, as well as her love for Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. and his wife, Jacqueline Jackson.
Thank you to Michelle's family for loaning her to us. She has been a powerhouse supporter of our organization. Were it not for her, during the pandemic, she went to Reverend Jackson and said, Reverend, we need to keep contact with the volunteers. And Michelle, on her own, reached out to the volunteers and pulled together a weekly call of 40 or more volunteers, and she faithfully served in that position as chairman, even raising money for other events during the pandemic. The last event she raised money for was money for lunches during the Push conventions for the Watch Party. God loved her more than we did, which is why he took her home and took her home to rest from her pain. She will forever be remembered by myself and all of the many volunteers and oratorical students and Push Excel HBCU students who worked with and loved our Michelle Chambers. Thank you so much.
I worked with Michelle Chambers on the volunteer call, and I grew to love her. She was just an amazing person, and we're really going to miss her. So we just want to pray for her family, to say we'll never forget you, Michelle. God bless you.
There is no way any of us can sum up the great deeds, the many fruits, and the life of Miss Michelle Chambers. She was a faithful, faithful servant, a true friend, a quiet but yet powerful warrior, an advocate of equitable education, and a sweetheart. She was the kindest soul we will ever see and that we have ever met. She worked tirelessly to advance the mission of Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. Her heart was even softer for Mrs. Jacqueline L. Jackson. Ms. Chambers refused to ever give up. Her dedication to the Rainbow Push Coalition remained until the very end. The world shall never ever be the same. I loved Mrs. Chambers, and I joined countless others in this sentiment. There is no doubt. God welcome this lady home. I love you, Michelle.
Michelle Chambers' life was the epitome of vision and deep faith, an example worthy of emulation. She was my friend and colleague for the many years we worked together assembling the Push Excel Oratorical Society. I've lost a good friend whose encouragement, counsel, love, and wisdom meant so much to me over the years. May her family derive some measure of comfort in the knowledge that we share their grief with them. May she rest in peace. Amen.
God has been very good to me because I have lots of friends and people that love me.
Miss Gurnell Sims made her transition from this life to the next on Thursday, September 2nd. She was an original member of Operation Breadbasket, the commercial division, and a founding member of Operation Push. Whether Push or the Rainbow Push Coalition, we could always count on Gurnell to be there and to lend a helping hand. She was a dedicated, hardworking, faithful, and longtime active member of our organization. She was a supportive volunteer and worked in many projects, making them successful and meaningful. She was always a gentle, kind, friendly, and loving soul to everyone around her and everyone she met. We will miss her smiling face and Christian spirit.
Many of you have been praying and sending words of prayer and comfort to Rainbow Push and to the Jackson family as you are waiting to hear an update on Reverend and Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson. So here it is. Mr. Jonathan Luther Jackson, our national spokesperson, will give you an update on the family.
Greetings, Rainbow Push family and friends. I'm Jonathan Jackson, national spokesperson for the Rainbow Push Coalition. I am so thankful and grateful for those of you that have prayed for my mother, our father, this organization, and the countless amount of people that have been affected and infected by this COVID-19. I am honored to report that my mother and father, Reverend and Mrs. Jesse Jackson, are recovering and are taking well to their therapeutics and their rehabilitation schedule at Northwestern University Hospital. I'd like to also give a very special thank you to all of the caregivers, the CNAs and the nurses and the doctors as well. Those persons that have not wavered and have grown tired and wearied but have never stopped. And as this surge continues to rise, let us all be forever mindful and vigilant that, as the World Health Organization director said, the people may be sick of the COVID, but the COVID is not sick of the people. This thing is spreading. If you look at the stats of the 1918 Spanish flu, it was a second wave that was more ferocious. We're now going into a double whammy, if you will, 1-2 pandemic effect coming in this fall with children going back to school. And I'm glad to see they're going back to school, but we must be careful because we're going into flu season with a surge of a new variant. So as a person that's witnessing their parents struggle and go through this, I would caution you and pray that you would never have to see this. I've not been able to see my parents now for 2 weeks as they've been hospitalized. And so that's probably most anguishing of all. Secondly, I'd like to say on behalf of the organization, the agenda and focus that we have on behalf of Rainbow Push. We are very much concerned about what's happening in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast states. We have seen this mounting pressure over the last 16 years from Hurricane Katrina and Gustav and Isaac and now Ida. I think there was another hurricane in between there. But in the last 16 years, there have been 4 major hurricanes, even if I said Harvey, that have wreaked havoc on the Gulf Coast. We're now looking at over $200 billion in damage cumulatively from all these hurricanes. And in the last 16 years, climate change is real. If you were to look at all those that have been displaced by climate change and those that have been displaced by war and those that have been displaced by all the subsequent consequences of climate change, poor vegetation, land that's no longer inhabitable. It'd be over 300 million people. It'd be the 5th largest nation on earth. Is now composed of migrant populations, people that have to flee their land because it's no longer inhabitable. We must address climate change. My father has spoken about that. As it relates to Hurricane Ida, we're praying for our family and friends in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast areas. The first phase now is rescue, wellness checks, knocking on doors. People are still trapped in homes with no electricity, no water, no power. We pray for them. Second part is then the recovery, the ability for first responders to get in to try to put the electricity and the power back on. It's very inclement weather in that region. And then the third phase will be in the restoration, the rebuilding that must ensue, and we must take full advantage of those contracts and compliance, and our people deserve the right to work, deserve the right to rebuild where they live. We also see that the voting rights attack is in full speed. We see in the state of Texas right now, as we talk about recovery, that there is a stripping away of our Voting Rights Act. They've attacked the abortion rights bills. It's a woman's right to choose is our position. This is encroaching upon the anatomy of a woman. No man should have that right to have a voice in that. We firmly believe that. So we have much work to do. Much has been done. We thank God that our founder and First Lady are here with us. I'd also like to give a very special thank you to the Reverend Attorney Jeanette Wilson, who holds this program down week after week, who's in constant contact with Reverend Jesse Jackson. But on a sadder note, something very close and personal to home, we've lost a very close personal family friend of the organization, Mrs. Michelle Chambers. She made her transition. Ms. Chambers has been with the Rainbow Push for better than 20 years. She's a dedicated member of the Push Excel service, worked very closely with Reverend Jeanette Wilson, has been on many of the sponsorship and scholarship tours for young African-American boys and girls, young men and women, if you will, to go on colleges. She's opened their eyes. What a caring, nurturing, loving soul. Michelle Chambers has gone on to be with our Heavenly Father. We will miss her here on earth, and we don't know all the ways of God, but we thank Him. We thank Him for sending that angel into our life. We love you, Michelle. Rest in heaven. We'll see you in the morning. I want to thank all of you for keeping us in your prayers. We'll continue to pray for you, and we thank God for your prayers for us. We're going to keep hope alive.
Yeah, we're at Concordia Place Apartments. Push has been here for the past several weeks. And we've got to get to a place where we're stopping complaining about what schools are not doing and then fill those gaps. And so I'm happy that Rainbow Push is filling that gap and making sure our students who would otherwise be left out or ostracized or pushed to the side have an opportunity to be exposed to this kind of stuff. The future is going in the direction of technology, right? Artificial intelligence, drones. and your heart can believe it, say you can achieve it. You can achieve it, right?
Want to say on a positive note, happy birthday to our own Bishop William A. Barber. He has been on the front line, marching, demonstrating. He is in the tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we thank you, Dr. Barber. Happy birthday to our own justice champion, our repairer of the breach. Well, it's back to school all across the United States. Many children have already been in school. What we're saying to every parent, take your child to school. Give your child a mask to wear every day they go to school, every single day. Make sure that they let you know that the other children in the class have a mask on, that the teacher is wearing a mask, that the aides in the room ask questions when they come home. We're urging all schools to respond to science, not to negative things that you read in social media about whether a mask is beneficial. Every physician that we've talked to, the CDC, everybody, the Center for Disease Control that is, has simply said every child should wear a mask, everyone in the building should wear a mask, all adults should be vaccinated. Push Excel staff distributing masks and book bags in Detroit, in Atlanta, in DC, in New York, Chicago. We believe in doing what we can to protect our children. We also we're giving masks that were donated by Ford Motor Company. We're distributing book bags in all of those cities that were donated by the Walgreens Corporation. We want our students to go back prepared and safe to school.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
I'm Todd Yeary, Senior Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Much has happened during the course of this week, and I want to give you an update on some of the issues we continue to work on. First, our prayers go out to those who have experienced great hardship after Hurricane Ida slammed into the Gulf Coast on Sunday. The damage is widespread, and the current outages in New Orleans and other affected parts of the state pose a significant threat as the hot weather has returned, making the conditions much more critical for those struggling to survive. We encourage you to share whatever you can in the effort to support the relief efforts in the Gulf Coast region by reaching out to entities and organizations that focus on disaster relief in times like these. We will be joining in these efforts in the days to come to provide relief to the Gulf Coast and also to support the relief efforts in Haiti after the recent earthquake. On the energy justice front, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed the bill that will bring energy equity to Pembroke, Illinois. The Now law makes Energy Choice available to the residents of Pembroke, the predominantly African American township that has historically been one of the most economically disadvantaged areas in the state of Illinois. 2 years ago, at the invitation of local residents and elected officials in Pembroke, Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition began a process of exploration, dialogue, and advocacy for energy access in Pembroke. This was not the first such effort to bring energy access to the area. For more than 2 decades, there have been conversations, starts, stops, and resistance to giving residents in Pembroke the same level of energy choice that 80% of the residents of Illinois already have to their benefit. Many of Pembroke's residents live below the standard of energy poverty, paying more of their monthly income to heat their homes with available energy sources. For many, this has meant the use of propane and wood to heat their homes in the winter. Because of the leadership of Reverend Jackson, the Rainbow Push Coalition, industry partners, and local, state, and federal elected officials, energy poverty in Pembroke will finally be eradicated, and the residents of Pembroke will be able to enjoy essential services like broadband and other essential services as a result of this important and timely legislation. We thank Governor Pritzker for his recognition of the need for energy access and equity, and we thank the members of the General Assembly, especially the Legislative Black Caucus, for their bipartisan commitment to energy justice in Pembroke. In the area of police reform and justice for the victims of police violence, the fight continues in Baltimore County, Maryland, just a few miles from where I am today. It is time to pay the jury award in the Corinne Gaines wrongful death case. On August 1st, 2016, Corinne Gaines was shot in the back and killed while in her apartment, and her then 5-year-old son, Cody, was shot and maimed by Baltimore County Police Officer Corporal Royce Ruby after police went to her apartment to serve a warrant for failing to appear in court for a traffic ticket. Corinne Gaines was having a behavioral health crisis, yet Corporal Ruby recklessly shot Corinne Gaines in the back, through the drywall in her kitchen with a military assault rifle, and then fired additional rounds into her body after she was initially injured by the first shot. Corporal Ruby was sued for wrongful death, excessive force, and for violating the civil rights of Corinne Gaines and her son, Cody. After a 3-week trial, the jury determined Officer Ruby's blind shot into the back of Corinne Gaines was unreasonable. Corinne Gaines' son, Cody, who was 5 years old at the time, was also struck by the reckless shot. The jury also found that Cody's constitutional rights were violated. Not only was Cody present when his mother was killed, he has endured several reconstructive surgeries for his injuries and continues intensive trauma support from his exposure to the excessively violent act of Corporal Ruby, who was never disciplined, nor has ever been charged. This Baltimore County jury awarded Cody and the Gaines family $38 million, the largest jury award for a police wrongful death suit to date. However, the portion of the judgment that pertains to Cody for his injuries and trauma, almost $33 million, remains unpaid. Sources tell us that the county's settlement offer for now 10-year-old Cody's trauma and injuries was $1 million, in a total disregard of the jury's legal verdict and award. This is the kind of governmental indifference and outright hostility that says Black lives really don't matter in Baltimore County. We will continue to put pressure on Johnny Olszewski, Johnny O, the county executive, to fulfill his legal and moral obligation to pay the jury award to a little boy who himself was shot in the same incident in which his mother was slaughtered in his presence. Today, on another note, we salute those who work hard every day to support their families, invest in their communities, and to ensure that government meets the needs of those who are most vulnerable among us. As we celebrate Labor Day on Monday, let us remember that the effort to protect voting rights goes hand in hand with the fight for economic rights in America. August 22nd marked the day that African American women would have earned in almost 2 full years what white men earned in 1. The reason we can't achieve police reform, economic justice and living wages, energy and environment equity, close the public health gaps around the social determinants of health, invest in quality education for all children, advance human rights at all of our borders, and ensure that our children are passed on a more just society than the one we inherited, it is because the goalposts are constantly being moved, making it harder to vote in states across this country. On this Labor Day, not only should we celebrate those who work hard every day with a sense of dignity and pride, we must commit to the type of labor that protects the rights of each of these workers in America. We must do the work to fight for the protection of the vote in all 50 states. Saying we've tried is insufficient. The many justice issues I've mentioned and many more hinge on our determination not to be discouraged nor denied. Let us commit to doing the work of justice until we achieve it. Every day must be Labor Day. Last weekend's national marches to commemorate the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and to speak with a unified voice that the Senate must pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which was passed by the House of Representatives almost 2 weeks ago. These marches laid out in great detail why this moment is so critically important and why we can't allow ourselves to fall into despair. Reverend Jackson tells us that we should never say we're tired. We must declare that we are determined to keep up this fight until victory is indeed ours. How must we do it? We must keep working, we must keep fighting, and we must keep hope alive. Finally, we commit ourselves to the cause for justice and freedom as we mourn the loss of our colleague, our sister, and our friend, Ms. Michelle Chambers. A native of St. Louis, Ms. Chambers spent her early career as the district coordinator for character education for the St. Louis public school system. A graduate of Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville and a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Ms. Chambers loved her work, loved the people she served and worked with, and loved encouraging others. She was a character educator who taught us all by how she lived. A woman of faith, she was a committed member of her church, a beloved sister to her siblings, and a special part of our Rainbow Push Coalition family. She will be missed, but never forgotten. Rest in peace, Michelle Chambers. The works you have done indeed speak for you. Amen.
It's education, it's back to school. I know you want to know, what are educators talking about? What are they working on? What are the policies that they're thinking about? Well, we have Dr. Sonia Whitaker, Dr. Donna Leak, Dr. Julianne Malveaux talk about the latest update on education conversations.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Sonia Whitaker, National Education Policy Director for Push Excel, and I have the honor of being joined today by Dr. Julianne Malveaux. Dr. Malveaux is the president of Push Excel, as well as the newly appointed Dean of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA. We are also joined by Dr. Donna Leak, and Dr. Leak is Superintendent of Schools for South Village School District 168, located in Illinois, as well as Vice Chair of the Illinois State Board of Education, amongst, like Dr. Malveaux, many other credentials. We are excited that you have decided to join us today. The title for our session is Push for Excellence, Going Against the Grain to Accomplish the Goal of Equity in Education. In alignment with our session title, it is important for us to share with you that in December of 2020, Push for Excellence launched our national town hall series called Shaping America's Education Agenda. The purpose of today's session, in alignment with the work that we've done all year, is to emphasize the need to remain vigilant in our efforts to ensure that all students gain equitable access to a quality education. In our attempts to do so, the session today will begin with a conversation between the three of us, in which we will identify national efforts which prove counterproductive as it relates to achieving the aforementioned goal. More specific, our conversation will be targeted toward addressing what we refer to as political hot topics, one of them being critical race theory. The concern is that decisions that bar teachers from engaging in important conversations could actually and will actually prove counterproductive to our efforts. And so without further ado, Dr. Leek and Dr. Malveaux, I'd like for you to please share with our viewing audience why this work or why this topic is of great importance to you.
Let's begin by just looking at the demographic shifts that our nation is experiencing, and at the same time, the pushback on the part of many to ignore these demographic shifts, but not only to ignore the shifts, but to ignore history. Yeah, enslavement happened. The annexation of Mexico to Texas out in California happened. The importation of Chinese men to California to build railroads happened. But people don't want to talk about it. People talk about our country being great. If it's great, it's also greatly flawed. And that's the part that we have to deal with. But you have some people who are Caucasian people who would prefer just to have the sanitized version of history. Critical race theory is about understanding how race and racism are at the foundation of every single one of our institutions. Every single one of our institutions. And once we understand that, it doesn't mean that we should beat ourselves up or feel guilty. It means that we can fix it. And so that's why I'm here as a dean of a college of ethnic studies. That's only the second one to be established in 50 years. It's important for me to empower my faculty to do their work around these issues that basically will inform curricula. Now, understand, no one is teaching K through 12 students critical race theory. The critical race theory does inform the work that many do as they look at the challenges of our nation.
So, and I want to add to that the whole idea about critical race theory, really, it boils down to this. We have been teaching history that was written by white men for white people from their perspective. And so if I were to tell the story of Christopher Columbus landing in the Americas from the indigenous people side of that story, it would not be the same wonderful, we came, we discovered, we broke bread, we learned how to eat together, we learned about corn. That would not be their side of that story. And so the struggle that I think that we are having universally across the country is there's a unique struggle with how can there be other sides of a story that we've been telling for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years from this perspective. So and for white people across the country, they feel like, well, we've included Black people, we've included Asian Americans, but what they haven't realized is that they've been talking about us and not having us tell the story through us. It's a big difference to tell a story about somebody as opposed to somebody telling their own story. And so that's where I think we're having this clash, is that it has been so ingrained that history is it's his story. That's why it's called history. It's his story that he's been telling all these years. And now we come to a moment in time that that's not okay anymore. It doesn't even make sense anymore. And the other part about this racism piece, and I think Dr. Malveaux with her position is really going to take this to the next level. Racism is not an event, it's a system.
Yes.
It is a systematic way of processing everything that we do that ensures that the white privileged power stays in their position through the system. And I don't even think they realize it. So we're at a turning point right now. And as an educator, it is my responsibility on my watch to do something about it.
You know, Sonia, Dr. Whitaker, History, when I was president of Bennett College, I used to always tell the young ladies, history belongs to she who holds the pen. Because as Dr. Leek has said, it's his story. So women are all too often peripheralized in the telling of history. But there's an African proverb that says, until the lion learns to read, the hunter will always be the hero. So of course, you have people now who are acting as if slavery was benign, enslavement was benign, that women wanted to be kept in their place. We can just go down the list and debunk these myths, but the process of debunking, especially in the post-Trump era, has been an attempt to continue to whitewash. So the most recent state, Nebraska, has they have legislation pending, and they're not the first state. Oklahoma was one of the first states, but they have legislation pending that would prevent the teaching of anything that had anything to do with race. Now,
And so that's
ironies. Just think about the ironies of this. If you think about Oklahoma being one of the first states, so Tulsa, Black Wall Street was destroyed, but they don't want to hear it because they don't want
to hear about
white children to feel guilty. Well,
Right.
but if these white children feel guilty, maybe they'll also feel motivated to basically unpack the system. Dr. Whitaker, you did a brilliant job, you and Dr. Leek, when we brought our young people together with one of our education town halls. Now, I remember a young white woman saying, it's more important for me to learn about Native American history than it is for me to learn physics.
The quadratic formula. That's what she said. Why am I learning the quadratic? Why is it more important for me to know about the quadratic formula than for me to know about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
And this young lady, again, she got it. She really got it. And I'm not saying if she wants to be an engineer, she better learn the quadratic formula. But
I'm a math teacher, so I want her to learn it too.
but what she was really saying is that our education is incomplete. See, white people can't deal with that. When you start talking about a number of things, they can't deal with the fact that this is their legacy. Their legacy is brutality. Their legacy is inhumanity. I don't want anybody to feel bad. I just want them to embrace that legacy and say, so now what can we do about this?
What can we do different?
This equation?
That's right.
That's
right.
How do we move forward?
So thank you for that, Dr. Malvo. I'm going to follow up with you on that in just a minute. Dr. Leek, I have shared with many that you and I have been given, and it looks like we'll continue to be given, the very distinct honor of conducting statewide presentations on the topic of what's race got to do with it. So I want to start by giving you a heads up that I want to refer to that. I'll take a step back and suggest that clearly there's a difference between critical race theory and culturally responsive teaching. And across the nation, as we began to look at newspaper articles, even as far as advocates for culturally responsive teaching, even as far as the teachers unions are really pushing back right now, not because they want to teach critical race theory, because as Dr. Malvo has eloquently stated, that's not what's happening in our K-12 classrooms. Advocates, such as those on the side of the teachers union, are concerned that this political conversation will inadvertently result in teachers not having the training that they need to ensure that they connect the curriculum to the spirits and the lives of students of color and students experiencing the impact of poverty. That, number one, I would have to say, based on my research and following all of this, is the concern. You and I have had the honor of elevating the conversation about race in classrooms and race in schools. And so I just want to pull back and give you some wide space right now to talk about what we've been able to do, and just to give our participating audience some feedback about how you think that's going, and what you've learned from those staff members about how important conversations about race is relevant to their work.
You know, the first thing I have to acknowledge that's very interesting is that we've been doing this work in the virtual world, which is very different than doing this work in person. And to still see the number of responses in chat rooms from white teachers in areas that they don't even have African American or children of color, to see their responses in the chat room, just saying, thank you, I hadn't thought about this, I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna do this, has been enormous in my perspective, because you can get that kind of feedback when we're in person, but to actually be able to get that feedback in this format, I think has shown that it really is a relevant topic that we have to stay focused on, and really laser-like focused on for teachers. Because what we're finding is, as we're doing this work, is that a lot of our white teachers, they just don't, and I hate to say it like this, they just don't know. They honestly are just not aware, because they live in this world, versus as Black, you know, we got a code switch, we got to go over here. If you went to HBCU, then you got to know how to deal with the predominantly white, a PWI, right? We got to do this all the time. They don't. And so what I'm finding is that we're having some real honest conversations, in some cases, some tough conversations, and little things that I don't even think they realize. Like, we talked about books, talked about the number of books from the study in New York that had animals, more animals on the cover of books for children than children of color or people of color on the covers of the books. For just think about that. I'm reading more stories about chickens, goats, cows, and pigs than I am reading stories about children who look like me or families who look like me, and what that does for a child's mindset. And so to even have, because in one of the sessions we did, they were saying, we're going to have to go back and really look at our books. Like, we weren't even thinking about this. And so I think what we've been able to do, Dr. Whitaker, you and I, is to roll the rock back and say, guess what? It's a whole bunch of stuff under this rock, and we're going to talk about it. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. In some cases, you might feel like, well, I'm not a racist. Nobody's calling you a racist. That's not it at all. What we're saying to you is, this exists, and this is your opportunity to do something about it. And I just think, and what I really like about the way we present it is, Doc and I we kind of start and bring you along in a story, and we include, both of us include our stories in terms of how we landed in front of you and how we got here. Like, I didn't just wake up, I'm Dr. Leek. No, I was born in rural Tennessee. I mean, so we go through our stories. We share, here's how we got to this moment. And then to have staff members, and I think it's been really crucial that we've had administrators, teachers, we've had all layers, superintendents that have been in our sessions, so that we are presenting and sharing out with a wide variety. The other part of it too is I sit on the board of directors for the National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics. And we at the board level, at the national board level, decided to take on this whole what's race got to do with it. And to hear my colleagues who've known me for years say things like, I just didn't think about it. I just honestly didn't know. And I'm so much more aware. Because I said, when we go to a restaurant and we walk in, I'm the only Black girl there. I know I'm the only Black person there. Like, you all don't even think about it. And so the other part too that I think is really crucial is that we are taking away permission to say, oh, you're a different kind of Black person.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're taking away that permission. You don't get to say, oh, you're different, because no. At the end of the day, I am Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Malveaux. We're Black women, period. You don't get to you don't get the permission to try to segment us. That's not acceptable. So, I'm looking forward to the work. It's grueling. I can't wait till we're in person. I'm gonna be honest.
I know. Soon,
September.
Yes, I can't wait for that.
Yes.
Well, the
Dr.
whole
Mel-
texture will be different. The texture of doing this in person will be very different, because years ago, not years ago, but maybe 5, I did a training with the National Education Association. I did a whole thing with them about race. And what was interesting is looking at the facial expressions of the people that you really can't see.
The body language.
So at one point, I said to people, so everybody's cool? Everybody's like, y'all not cool. Y'all so not cool.
Right.
And we had to, let's go back and do this again, because if nobody's ticked off, y'all not cool.
Right.
Right. Right. Dr. Marvo, can I ask you, in your role as Dean, and congratulations, of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA, can you share with us what is your greatest hope for what will be accomplished on your watch as it relates to ensuring that his story or her story is told?
Oh, great question.
I love that question.
I met with some of my team this morning and just got permission yesterday from the provost to start searching for full professor, a tenured professor of American Indian Studies. I have 3 departments that report to me: Pan-African Studies, Asian American Studies, and Chicano Latino X Studies. And so now I have permission. The charter calls for a Department of American Indian Studies. One of the things I forgot about academia, because I've been away for a little while, is how slow we tend to move. To get that department up and running, I think would be, I would be over the moon. I would really be over the moon. The other thing I think is to get these 4 departments working together. We tend to go into our silos as Black folks, as Chicano Latino X folks, as Asian American folks, and we need to work together because predatory capitalism affects us all and in different ways. As an example, Dr. Whitaker, August 3rd is Black Women's Pay Equity Day. It's the day when Black women, if you worked all year and then until August 3rd, you would then make the same amount of money as a white man did. So you had to work another 7 months or so. But what's also interesting about that Pay Equity Day is that it's earlier for Asian American women, but it's still not the same. And it's later for Chicano women, and it's later for Native American women. But what we have in common is that we all are basically dealing with this capitalist patriarchy in terms of what our wages look like. So to get these folks to work together and to really look at what we have in common, as well as what our differences are, I think would be to be a great possibility. I'm excited about the work. I get up every morning just excited. I mean, I miss, a lot of stuff from Washington, but this is just, it's a wide open tableau for me to basically deal with.
Well, and we're excited about it, and we will definitely have to have another opportunity for you to talk with us about how it's going again as it relates to accomplish that goal. We have no doubt that you're going to do that. Before I segue into the second part of our session today, I'm going to bring Dr. Leek back to talk about the students. Now, what you're going to see, as is indicated in the program booklet, is snippets of very important conversations that took place throughout our town hall series. And the purpose of I call it snippets of information, they're actually carefully selected, the parts of those town halls that you will hear for the purpose of supporting the conversation that just took place. As has been indicated, you'll not only hear from adults, but you're going to hear student perspectives as it relates to what they think about the importance of being provided an opportunity to know what America's real story is. I'll share that the students' voices that you will hear are those of students that are members of the Illinois State Board of Education's Student Advisory Council. And I'll ask Dr. Leek for just a brief moment here to just tell you about this body of students, again, recognizing that you'll hear from them and adults, and then I'll turn you over to the second part of the program. Dr. Leek?
Sure. So one of the things the Illinois State Board does have is the Student Advisory Council, and they're made up of high school students from all over the state of Illinois, from rural communities, urban, suburban, just all over. And they have been working together for years. I've been on the state board now for about 2.5 years, and they've presented previously. And so here's the interesting thing that happened this year. These young people in particular took the strategic plan that the state board put in place and really honed in on the equity pieces. And they presented to the state board. And when they were done, I was actually dumb. I mean, my mouth was open, because what they presented was very pure, very honest, and very insightful to be young people in high school. They talked about, and that's what we were talking about earlier, they talked about the fact that why are we learning these things like the quadratic formula. And again, I'm a former high school math teacher, so I love it. But to have them point out and say, how is it that I'm not being taught about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma? I should know that as a part of my history, as a part of the fabric of who I am. And for that to be white children who were sharing that out, that wasn't even our Black children. And so what I've discovered with this group of young people is that it feels promising to me that we're in a space that if we can start to really get our children, see, for us, we're old, right? It's a little harder for us. If we can really transition and get our young people to start thinking differently the way these young people have shared, and then for them to push that out to their peers and then younger people, that we can leave a legacy. That's what I'm talking about, our watch. We can leave a legacy of a different conversation that's happening. It doesn't take away what happened, it changes the conversation. And so, so when you hear from these young people later on, they're speaking their truth from their voice. And when they came in and presented to the Illinois State Board of Education with no qualms, they came in like, this is what we know. This is what we should be learning. And then they looked to us and said, now what are you going to do about it as adults to make sure that we're learning what we need to know? Because we didn't even know what we didn't know. And now we found out that y'all weren't getting it to us. So now what are you going to do? So that's our watch as the adults. I got some promising young people that are holding our feet to the fire, that are saying, you cannot continue to do what we've always done. We are not those young people. So we thought we were bad coming up. We are protesting. These young people are on a whole different, they're like, no, we don't need to just protest. I'm gonna need for you to step up and figure out what's being taught in these schools, because that's where we're walking out of the school, taking that with us. So we're gonna need for y'all to figure that out and make sure that it's accurate and that it's correct and that it honors the way that we need to integrate our fabric of life as a country.
Absolutely.
Can't wait for y'all to hear from them.
Absolutely. And there you have it.
They were fantastic. Again. They really were fantastic.
They are. They're amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies. There you have it. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, Dr. Donna Leak, thank you for sharing your expertise. You'll actually hear some more of their expertise because their voices are also included throughout all aspects of the second part of this programming option. So again, thank you for tuning in to Push for Excellence, going against the grain to accomplish the goal of equity in education.
For 2021, we're excited to get more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. Now, if you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those who are incarcerated, you can do so. If you're interested in impacting public policies that benefit education and businesses with social economic solutions, you can do that as well. You can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. Now, if you believe in the scholarships that we've given to thousands of students each year, you can help us out. We've awarded more than $10 million in scholarships year to date. Now, you can help young people achieve a higher education by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now for the annual fee of only $35. And if you're a student or a senior, it's only $15. You can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. Now, if you watch us every week, or if you listen to us on the radio, or if you're viewing on social media, we need you to become a member. And how do you become a member? It's simple. Visit us at rainbowpush.org and press join. Maybe you'd like to support the work of Push. If so, it's really simple. You can do so by texting the word PUSH, that's P-U-S-H, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving, or you can call us at 773-256-2775 or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. So whenever you want to support, you can do it from anywhere. So keep pushing, because we're going to keep pushing for you and keep hope alive.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students, July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few of jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did and what we did and how global it was. It was a speech about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it, so give it to your friends. Read it, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. You know, we've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the US, but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select Push for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
We are Sanctuary. We are a sanctuary.
When I think of Rainbow Push, I think of 2 words: social justice,
education advocacy,
political empowerment,
freedom and equality,
corporate partnership.
Stop the violence. Save the children. Don't get it. Shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down.
Political change,
inclusion, evolution, progress, justice.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
We want to be bridges to end these cultural gaps.
We're going forward. By hope. Not backwards. By fear.